And we are back, the Verge Live post-Apple iPad event. Ross Miller is here with me.
Good to see you all again.
And of course, the lovely, the delightful, the handsome, the newly beshirted Ellis Hamburger.
Yes.
And I'm Josh Topolsky, of course, editor-in-chief of The Verge, and generally nice guy unless you cross me, and then I end you and your entire family.
And that would be anyone who left the stream. But
anybody who left the stream, you're dead. Yeah. Anyhow, we're back. Post Apple iPad event. No big surprises, really.
No, unfortunately not.
And I kept my tie on.
Yeah.
So not a big surprise there either.
Team tie.
Ellis, you just watched the event. You're known around the office as the App Man. What's your take on this? What's your take on Apple
So the first thing I thought of was that old commercial from, I think, 2007 of Mac vs. PC, where they say, I can do everything right out of the box. And for whatever reason, when iOS came out, they decided to strip all those apps out of it and charge for them independently. So with this new version, they made everything free. They made Mavericks free. Everything's back in the box. They want everybody to be on the same playing field.
Yeah.
So that was my takeaway.
Yeah.
I think that's a good thing. I mean, software, making money from software doesn't mean anything to Apple. It's all about the hardware, at least for now.
Right.
And what they're doing is they're saying,
making money on the apps, but making money in their stores is a major part of their business.
Right. I'm talking about their own, making money off of pages.
Right.
That's small beans.
Where like Final Cut is not a big business.
So why are they
for
charging
them?
$5 for pages when they can just give it away? Now they can say, hey, not that we're necessarily worried about the Surface, but you're in one of the few Microsoft stores. They say this is a productivity machine. You got Office on there. Now Apple can say the same thing.
Right. They can say we give you pages and numbers and all this other stuff.
That's
and
the first thing I thought.
It's plug and play.
It's a very holistic view. Like we're giving it back to you guys for free.
Yeah.
Not only that, but they're leaning on the iCloud infrastructure. It's like, okay, we can do this, and you can also view it on your iPad. If you don't have your laptop, you can collaborate. That's a big deal now. You can collaborate with people.
Right.
Yeah. Is it real-time collaboration?
Yeah, it remains to be seen.
They didn't really go into.
Though.
They didn't go into a demo of that.
Yeah, they had Eddie and.
Of all things, they did not demo.
Yeah.
Actually.
Well, I mean,
they did demo it briefly.
But it wasn't. But they really just showed, hey, look, you can add collaborators.
Right.
And,
We can change the text.
Right. But I don't know how that compares to something like Google Drive or Google Docs, real-time collaboration.
They did say it was the most requested feature though for iWork for web beta.
Yeah,
so,
I mean, I'm not surprised.
Be more like Google Docs.
At least works a little bit.
I'm sure that's exactly what
that doesn't surprise me at all because their competitor is leaps and bounds ahead in that department, and I think people are looking at it saying like, look, I want to use all your stuff, I want to use it on my iPad, but then I get to the web and question mark, or I want to collaborate and question mark. Now that question mark is hopefully less of a question mark. Terrible way to end that. By the way. But what else? What about the new iPads? Any feeling?
Yay big.
I think smaller than that even.
Yeah.
As much as you joke around.
They
I
had
think
it
it's
resting behind a pencil and you couldn't see it. That was the idea.
Yeah.
Everybody's like, oh, Apple made a really nice pencil.
I thought they were going to introduce a stylus with a pencil commercial. I was a little confused. Are you, I mean, is this, what do you have? Do you have an iPad right now?
I have a mini.
Yeah. Would you upgrade to the Retina Mini?
Or even the Air?
So when I was thinking about getting a mini, I didn't use the iPad 3 much because it was so heavy and it would fall on my face and basically break.
It's terrifying if you're holding it, like if you're like laying down, you've got it like you're doing this, or even if you lay. So I would like lay down with it and do this. I've dropped it on my chest before.
Your newsstand just broke my stomach.
It's seriously painful. I mean, it's frightening.
Yeah.
It's not cool. So anyhow, but you were saying.
So I was saying, so that's why I got the mini. And one of the things about the mini is that I did a lot of reading on it. And to be honest, like I felt kind of like a whiner, but I did notice all the time. I used my iPhone so much.
It's a lot smaller.
That it's a lot smaller, but that it wasn't a Retina display.
Yeah. It is very noticeable. That was the one thing.
I'm an icon freak.
I love the mini.
I noticed that stuff.
But it definitely, it's particularly for reading, is obvious. I mean, my assumption is obviously, our guys are out there right now. My assumption is we're going to see some shots, some close-up shots of that display, and it's going to look incredible. Because remember, we're talking about Retina resolution on a relatively smaller display.
It's actually the same amount of pixels that's on the big iPad.
Right. So the pixel density is going to be higher.
Right.
And my guess is that's going to look incredible on a display of that size.
Is it the same thickness and weight as the old iPad Mini? I missed that detail.
I'm not sure.
Do they have? What does the live blog say? If only we had it. If only we could find out.
Only we could find out.
There's a site that has a good live blog.
Yes, Apple.com. No.
But regardless, the body type has not changed
Right.
for the iPad Mini. I mean, it's essentially the same body type.
Right.
Is it
And
is
it's
it
the
thinner?
same chip, too.
Do they say it's thinner and lighter? I don't think they do.
They don't. They do emphasize that it's now 326 pixels per inch. An insane density on this.
Is 326 the same number as the iPhone?
I think the iPhone's
5?
either 326 or
The
316.
5S, yeah.
It's pretty close
Is it
to it.
316? I think the previous, the 3.5-inch display was 326. I could be wrong.
Yep, 326.
Wow.
At any rate, you know, I think I have to say they spent a lot of time on the software. No big surprises. The freebie stuff was definitely somewhat surprising. Mavericks for free was a little bit surprising.
Right.
They did not. I thought there might be some Final Cut stuff for pros. There was no mention of it. There may be something. Sometimes Apple will roll out some of these updates without talking about it on stage, especially for the pro stuff. Mac Pro came in at a price point that I think was where we expected it to be.
$29.99.
Ziegler said he was betting for 2,000.
Well, he was way off. Okay, that's the guy. That's the guy
Buy
that
a
owes
G.
me. That's the guy that owes me money. Then, way off. That guy should not be allowed to guess about anything. But I think overall the event was.
There's a lot of geeky stuff.
It was geeky stuff. Well, I mean, it's funny because Apple's gone a little bit further into this spec kind of feeds and speeds. I mean, I remember being at an event, watching Phil Schiller on stage, making fun of other companies, talking about feeds and speeds.
Right.
You know.
Yep.
They used to downplay the idea of that stuff, and now they're really playing it up. I mean, I think part of it has to do with the consumer. Consumers have become a lot more knowledgeable about what it means to have a fast CPU or a high-resolution display. But I think also, you know, when you think about how you compete with these devices, the changes are incremental, and they're incremental between companies' devices. You know, the offering of the Surface versus the iPad when it comes to hardware. You know, that's the way you differentiate. You know, they're all tablets. The Nexus 7's a little tablet. The iPad Mini's a little tablet. Obviously, there's a better software offering for the iPad Mini, but how do you differentiate? You have to start to talk about specs because they're not adding.
They're increasingly getting to know their consumers better, I think.
Right.
And it's a broader consumer base.
Yeah, I mean, people, I think last year were saying, crap, is the Mac Pro dead?
Right.
Like, I love my big aluminium tower.
Well, that's a different. That's a different type of consumer.
And right, so that's back. And they talked about the specs for the MacBook Air, but guess what they did for regular people? They dropped the price by $200.
Right.
Which means a lot.
Right.
To a lot of people. There's
I
still
agree.
holdouts who say, I don't want a Mac. It's
I mean, they're
too
still in a
expensive.
price range that's not going to compete with the low end.
Right.
They're not going to compete with Chromebooks. They're not going to compete with cheap $500 PC laptops. Like, they're just not going to do that. They are going to compete for that $1,000 laptop market. They are going to compete for the big and small. I mean, you have to think about the price points. What is the price point now for the iPad Mini? It's $299, the low end one.
Yeah,
the original.
They dropped it $30.
I mean, it's still
$199.
no.
No.
$299.
For the Mini.
No, it's $299.
There's no way they dropped it that much.
No, it's $299 for the Mini.
$299 and $399?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they dropped it $30.
Right.
But, you know, the competition is at $229. The Kindle is the Kindle Fire. They sell a version of the Kindle Fire for $139 that has an HD display.
Right. The HD. The last
Kindle
HD.
Fire HD, yeah. And, you know, but you have to remember, consumers, they are looking at that price point. They are saying, well, I can spend $300 or I can spend $139 or $199, and that does make a difference to them. But, you know, clearly Apple has an advantage in the ecosystem.
Yeah, and they play it up every single time. You know, they give $13 billion to developers. They have 475,000 apps that are actually specialized, custom designed for the iPad. These are not the Android apps that have been like expanded to fill screen. This is something that's like for that experience. And like Apple drives it home every single time. You're not just getting a bigger iPhone, you're getting something unique.
Yeah. Well, and you know, it is definitely unique thanks to the developers, and I think increasingly unique thanks to Apple's first-party apps, which are clearly they're putting some effort behind and strength behind now. They want to make those a feature of these things. They want to say we offer this suite, like you were saying, Ellis. But so let's talk overall for a second. I want to talk about the event. None of the surprises that people were expecting. Of course, can you really expect a surprise? Sort of an oxymoron there, isn't it?
The invite said we got a lot to cover. I think a lot of people were thinking cover, something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
Or even a lot more than we had, honestly.
I even tweeted that, you know, the cover idea could be really powerful for Apple.
Right.
I mean, I still think, I got to say, you know, I have a Surface sitting here. there are things I like about this. The thing that I like most about it is the utility of these covers with the keyboards on them. I mean, they're actually really, really useful. And everybody I know who has a regular sized iPad, and everybody I see on a plane or when I'm out,
they bought a keyboard.
They have a Logitech keyboard adapter,
right.
and they all kind of are not that great. You did a big rundown of keyboards, didn't you?
Yeah, and the thing is, there were a few that stood out, and one of them was this origami keyboard holder thing, which has been
I remember that.
brought in by, was it for the Surface 2? They have the exact same foldable design.
Kindle HDX has it.
Kindle HDX, that's right. And I think it would be a good place for Apple to jump in and build something of their own and offer it at a premium price and make so much money. The margins on their first-party accessories are insane.
No, I mean, to me, it seems like a no-brainer. It's first off, you squash the whole concept of the Surface. If you were even remotely worried, which I don't think Apple is, but if you're even remotely worried, you add the iWork suite. I mean, you say, look, if you really want to do a bunch of email and you're typing up a storm and you love having a physical keyboard, we made a cover for you and it's advanced technology, blah, blah, blah. Charge $100 for it or $130 for it. Make it for, 15 or whatever, 20, whatever it would cost. Their margins would probably be pretty good on something like that. And it just seems like there's a demand for it from their users. I mean, I've seen... it's anecdotal, but it's pretty strong that users who have iPads want this kind of stuff.
And it's not like Apple doesn't make Apple keyboards anyway.
Right.
And, it's a market you need to worry about because, and this is something I thought was interesting. There's a chart where they showed iPad sales. They said iPad sold 170 million. They showed this line chart, but the thing was, at the top for the last 2 or 3 quarters, these sales have kind of slowed. It's not the exponential rate it has been. So this, the iPad buyer's market seems to be slowing at least a little bit right now, which is something that's never happened before, it seems. And the tablet market itself is growing much faster. So they're actually, at some point, kind of ceding some of the dominance they've had.
Yeah.
The usage doesn't seem to be ceding any dominance, though. They're still saying, what percent of it?
81%.
81% of the time spent on tablets.
What is the usage? How are they rating usage? Do we know that?
I think in past time they've used web usage. I think they've seen people.
Is that the metric? It's web usage?
In years past, it's what it's been.
I think it's a fairly, I'm not saying it's debatable, but it's a different kind of metric. What you want to know is time on device. Web, I hardly ever browse the web when I'm using a tablet.
Right.
I spend time reading. I spend time,
Pocket, Instapaper.
Pocket or Instapaper, or reading a book, or reading magazines, or reading Feedly. Sometimes, very occasionally, I'll play a game. I really don't watch video. Sometimes I'll listen to music. But the thing is, so what is use,
The shopping statistics are absolutely off the charts for the iPad.
Right.
They don't even compare to Android tablets for holiday shopping. The percentage of people that are shopping on tablets is increasing, and most of them are doing it on iPad. So I think that's like a scenario that's becoming so important.
Yeah.
So
I don't think anybody's offered a really good alternative. In terms of the ecosystem and the completeness. I think that, look, Android tablets are still getting there. The Surface, the one that is really competitive, the Surface RT that I consider to be the competitor, is still lacking as far as ecosystem is concerned, big time. And so you just have to, and then you've got Kindle. They don't really talk about numbers. I think that Amazon feels like they're doing quite well. They've talked about their market share being 30% of the tablet or something, 30% of the tablet market. But I don't know how that's possible if Apple's numbers are accurate. So all of this is a bit of a guessing game, and all of these numbers are a little bit, sort of questionable to some degree. But I'm inclined to believe Apple when they say they've got a big ass market share with iPads, because that's what I see people using.
And a big ass market share of people who are using them too.
Yeah. Well, I don't get this idea that people would buy them and not use them. So they're talking about a specific type of use.
Well,
I saw a guy with an Nexus 7 on the train today playing a game. What is the game where you run and jump?
Temple Run.
Temple Run. He's playing some variation of Temple Run. I see people playing Temple Run on all sorts of things. That wouldn't factor into usage in those metrics if they're just talking about web browsing or shopping, right? So there's different uses, but I believe that Apple's still far and away the preferred tablet.
It is, and although it's just not alarming, but I'm sure they're kind of thinking about it. The IDC numbers, second quarter 2013, they actually had lower growth than they did year over year. This is another interesting note here. Localytics, tablet usage, and I want to use this as kind of a jumping off point. The iPad mini is now 17% of all the iOS tablets being used.
Yeah.
iPad 2 is apparently still 38%.
Yeah.
There's a huge share.
Which
But
apparently will
it
grow
will
since they
not
keep
die.
By the way, so the iPad Mini Retina Depth is actually, it's a little bit bigger
Right.
and a little bit heavier than the previous Mini.
Adam Pasco, I'm sorry if I'm not saying that right, lets us know that it's 0.07 heavier and 0.01, I'm assuming, inch thicker in depth.
Yeah. So that kind of makes sense. New display, probably a slightly larger battery, I would assume. Here's the thing. It's a cool update.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people are going to buy it. This certainly isn't, this is Apple exerting its place and its dominance in tablets. The software looks good. I don't get that excited about productivity software, as I said during the live.
And V seem to love it.
Who?
The demos.
Oh yeah, Apple's very excited. Tim Cook is the numbers guy. When he sees a spreadsheet, he gets very excited.
He wants fireworks in it, which they added.
That's right. Sure, why not?
But if you have a lot to cover, you don't spend 5-10 works making.
Well, they didn't have that much. They didn't actually have that much to cover.
No,
so no
didn't.
Apple TV, no iWatch. I think we knew these things weren't going to happen.
Right.
But there's no Apple television set, no iWatch. They didn't get into any new product categories this year. Tim Cook had made mention of exciting new product categories. There's some debate about whether he specifically was talking about getting into them or just that they're excited about new product categories. But unless they hold another event this year, Apple is not getting into any new product categories in any significant way.
Well, let's also look at some of the stuff they usually mention that didn't come up. There were no iPods at all.
Yeah.
No bigger iPad. That was just a rumor. No Apple TV set-top box or content distribution deals. No apps for that. No games. Which is not. It's more just an iPhone thing. We saw it for Infinity Blade.
They could have shown off some gaming, but I think it's a well-established fact that gaming is a thing that you do on the iPad. I don't feel like they have to hit people over the head with it.
They did for Pages.
No, but I think that's what they wanted to sell. I do think there was a little bit of a response to Microsoft in there.
You think so?
There's certainly a response.
they did go for
Certainly a
365.
response to Google, though Google doesn't sell their stuff on productivity. They sell their stuff. The productivity is kind of this. For Google, is this. It's there. It's increasing. It's the growth is obvious that people are adopting Google for its. We use them internally for all of our. Vox and Verge communication and collaboration. But, but look, I still use Keynote when I need to put together a presentation.
Right.
What I don't use is PowerPoint. And, Office is the one place where Windows and Microsoft have had this, incredible foothold, right? This is almost a stranglehold on people, and you still see people that are like, I can't move off of Office, I can't move out of these applications,
all the time.
But I do think Apple's saying, or starting to say, we're here, and we want to be a player. We want to be taken seriously as more than just, a cool device that your kids use or that you use to watch movies. They did the same thing with the iPhone. Yeah. The iPhone started out as this obviously very closed device that had no apps. They opened it up to apps. And it was seen as like this incredible, cool games and cute little to-do lists or whatever. And I think pretty quickly they said, look, these are real productivity devices. You can get stuff done with them. Right. And I think they're saying the same thing. They're also saying we're not just you can get stuff done with them, but we're competitive and we're going to be competitive by offering this stuff.
I wonder how much
free.
they are thinking about that in advance. When you look at the iPhone, there are obviously lots of crazy quotes that people said about the iPhone and how they predicted it would do, but I don't think anybody predicted that it would be the phone that accountants today are provided by their IT departments at top 4 accounting firms.
Right.
5 years later, I don't think anybody predicted that. So it's interesting to me, maybe how much they're thinking about how much they want these to be productivity devices. If you look at what airline is it that's handing out iPads, and you see it.
Is it Verge?
Delta?
Yeah, I think it's Delta, and you see it.
I know there was something about they're giving
places.
services to people on
right.
American
And guess
or
what's
United.
on the iPads? These same
Games.
productivity. Well, games, yeah. Candy
Flying
Crush.
games.
And also now.
What's weird about pilots is they love to play flying games when they're at the controls.
The last thing I want to see is my pilot about to do Ace Combat, just to get that out of the system.
Yeah. Or do you want to see that? Because then he's getting it out of the system.
That's true.
But yeah, no, they absolutely. That's a great point, and I think that they have replaced BlackBerry in a lot of places.
It's clearly not out of their reach to disrupt big business the way that they have. I mean, I talked to some of my friends, and they're still trying to get their company on, Windows 2010 or something, or like Word 2010 and Excel 2010, and it's years old, and that probably came out in 2009, since it's called 2010, and it just takes ages and ages and ages to do that, and it's moving so slowly that maybe Apple thinks it can make a difference there. What I'm interested in is where they're dipping their toes into web, like iWork, and clearly this is a place that people want to do word processing and keynote making and editing their documents, and I'm interested to see where they're going to do that with their other apps and services. Obviously, it's a challenge for them.
Let's talk about that for a second. So, and obviously, we know iWork apps for OS 10 and for obviously for the iOS devices. What can you actually do with the web version? Or if you had a Windows machine, what could you actually do to interact with Pages?
They said it worked with Internet Explorer. I think it's meant to be pretty much identical. I mean, it was rebuilt from the ground up to work on the web and for collaboration, apparently. Yet, when you look at something like Maps, it's probably using a lot of graphics acceleration to do a lot of the flyover stuff.
Right.
But I mean, Google Earth looks pretty sweet in the browser too, and maybe that's just not their expertise, but they're still focusing a lot on the local apps on your machine. That's still their bread and butter. But it's cool to see them trying out new stuff on the web and actually making changes quickly, like they seem to have done by adding collaboration just in the last few months.
Right. I think it's a long road for them. The web has always been a challenge for Apple, and it's always been a challenge for them to get that together. They've been slow moving. They had people forget about this. I mean, we don't obviously, but a lot of people forget when MobileMe was first launched. It was seen as this big push into the web, big push into services, connected services, and it was a disastrous launch. Steve Jobs famously fired a bunch of people after it, and but since then they learned a lot of lessons. And they've been moving, I think, in baby steps. The Apple Maps situation, when they released the iPhone 5, had a similar feel to it, where they rushed into something and didn't have all their ducks in a row, and you saw like an immediate backlash from people. And to this day, like nobody trusts Apple Maps that I know, and frankly, nobody I know invests in or trusts iCloud as something where they're like, I use this, I rely on it, I know it's going to work for me.
Or even I know what it does.
Well, exactly. And so they have moved slowly, but they haven't done anything that is. They need to move the needle in some way. They need to say, we're giving you something you can't get anywhere else, and we're doing it better than the experience you have anywhere else. And they still haven't shown me, look, their desktop apps are incredible, their iOS apps are incredible, but are they, for something like word processing, for Pages, how much better does it have to be for me to not use the thing that is ubiquitous, that I can collaborate with people on, that is innately connected to my email and my calendars and my contacts? You have to buy into the whole thing, and in order to do that, you have to have a seamless offering that not only is as good, but in some way better than the thing that you're already using. And I think that's where you see with Microsoft, the way they've been able to just hang on with Office is, okay, yes, I think it's, look, Office in general, I think is terrible to use. I think it's overly complex. I think it is, archaic in some ways in the way it functions. Obviously very powerful. A lot of the features of those apps are very powerful. And businesses have just plugged into it and they're there. So how do you change those attitudes? How do you move the needle? How do you tell people? Mobile was easier. Here's why. BlackBerry had some footprint there in mobile devices for large companies. Windows Mobile a little bit. We're talking 5, 6, 7 years ago. The iPhone technology changes. Right. The phones from 5 years ago are totally useless. You can't use them. 6 years ago, you can't use them. You can't do anything with them. I mean, they literally don't function at this point. So what happens? You've got to upgrade your devices. Once you have to upgrade your devices, the software is in some way secondary when it comes to mobile. It's not like they were relying on their BlackBerries. It's not like they were relying on their BlackBerries for every single thing they had to do. If they saw a better device, some other opportunity, like, oh, we can make our warehouse run smoother because now we have a device that has real applications.
Right.
I think there was an obvious window there. You have to upgrade the hardware. The software had done, I think, nothing impressive except for BlackBerry security and email, which obviously, and push, right. Well, once you take that out of the equation, and if Apple's saying we're secure, and you know it's Apple, it's not like they have a track record of being insecure or unsecure. You know, I think there was a way to turn that over with desktops and with systems that are hugely integrated with, you know, Windows XP running Office across thousands, tens of thousands of computers.
Let me ask you. You're describing a lot of these areas that Apple disrupted with the iPhone that people didn't necessarily expect. When you look at TV, do you feel like that's coming soon? Do you feel like the rumors are mounting or maybe waning a little bit, because it's been years that people have been saying it? And when I look at my TV every day or so, that's what voicemail looked like to me before on my phone. You got to press all these buttons.
You know, we got to hold that thought. We have Dieter.
Oh, Dieter's on the line.
Dieter is on the ground, live from the Apple. There he is. Dieter Bone. Welcome.
Hey.
Welcome to the Verge
Dieter,
Live.
hello.
How's it going, guys?
How are you? You look great. First off, I just want to say, fantastic. Very sunny there in San Francisco. What's going on? Give us your take on today's event.
I gotta say, I think the event felt a little low-key. There weren't any really huge surprises. I guess if there was any surprise, it was that so much of the software was free. But you know, the new iPads were basically what we expected. Got basically what we expected with the new MacBooks. So I didn't walk out of there feeling totally shocked and amazed by anything.
Is there a product that you saw that you feel like is a slam dunk for them today? I mean, is the Air, you know, is this going to spike a whole new rash of iPad purchases? Or if you're thinking of purchasing an iPad, you were already going to get the newest one and this is just the next one that's available to you? Do you think this moves the needle at all?
I think it moves it a little bit. I think Phil Schiller said on stage that this is one of these products where you actually need to pick it up and hold it to really feel how it is. And the iPad Air, man, that's 1 pound, they say, and it's super light. It feels completely different. And so I'm really, you know, I've been using the iPad Mini for a long time, and I assumed coming into this event that I would get Retina Mini. But after holding the iPad Air, I am actually a big believer, hey guy. And
just went right in front
I think
of the
that I
camera.
might go back to the full-size iPad.
Really?
It's real classy.
Did you get a sense from people who were there? Obviously, you're talking to the other journalists who were there, and clearly you're talking to Apple reps, though they're not going to express this. Was there any sense from other people around you that that people expected more here, that they were thinking that there'd be something else?
A lot of journalists were, you know, laying odds down that we might see something crazy. A lot of people were really hoping for a 4K display panel. I kind of wasn't a big believer in that, and so nobody really expected anything else, but everybody was hoping for a little bit more. And instead, we got something that was just kind of by the numbers from Apple.
So, the software that they showed off. Sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to transition to the software. I think that moving iWork to completely free on new devices and making Mavericks completely free is really interesting. And they put it in context of competing against Microsoft and Office, which charges, I think it's $99 a year. And so I was thinking, wow, this is totally crazy and new. But then I also remembered, oh, wait, I use Google Docs, which is free all the time. And so on the one hand, yes, they're giving you a better deal than what Microsoft does on its tablets. But on the other hand, I mean, we introduced these market is changing. Stuff like productivity documents, spreadsheets,
over the charts, off the charts.
It's moving towards free, and I think Apple. It's interesting that Apple is aligning itself more closely with Google than it is with Microsoft for that stuff.
Sorry, we had some audio issues there, but did you get a chance? They showed off a little bit of this collaboration, this iWork collaboration. Can you talk about it at all? Did you get a better impression of what that would entail? How similar is that to Google Docs collaborative editing?
Well, you know, I don't know. I mean, they showed it running on the desktop, so I can't say if it's going to work as well on the web version or on the iPad. I mean, the Google Doc collaboration is really second to none, and so I'd be kind of surprised if it worked as well as that, but when they were demoing it on stage, the changes were instantaneous, across the stage on whatever their connection was. And it seemed to work fairly well. But the big question is will it be as full-featured as some of the stuff you can get in other suites with like full commenting and revision history and all the rest? It looks pretty, but whether or not it's actually like useful to be productive is a different thing. I'd have to use it to find out.
I do think it's a marketing play.
Do you?
In
You
a
think
part.
you think it's marketing?
I know very few
Yeah.
people who use those apps. You say use Keynote, and I don't know a ton of normal people who use those apps on a daily basis, and I think that it is now easy for them to say, look, we've got a productivity suite that's free on this device too.
Yeah. All right, Dieter, I know you have to get back to work there. As a matter of fact, if you don't get back to work, you're going to be in huge trouble. But I appreciate you taking the time. And any final thought here from you from today's event?
My final thought is the thing I said at the outset, honestly. This was a by-the-numbers event, no big surprises. I don't think it's disappointing, unless you were hoping for more. I kind of was, but, Apple churned out some new stuff, exactly as I thought.
73 degrees and sunny again in San Francisco.
Yeah,
Dieter, thanks so
finally.
much. Thanks so much for joining us, and great job today.
Right.
It really is, God, I went way into newscaster voice there for 1 second. 73 degrees and sunny,
Thank you,
as
Wolf.
usual, in Cupertino. Now back to, what was your name? I was doing, before we started,
right.
I had a fake name. Clay
Burger?
What? Clay Buster?
Oh, yes, right.
Clay Buster. Anyhow. Yeah, I mean, it really was, though. I have to say, it was by the numbers, by the books. For Apple, but we shouldn't be surprised about that anymore. I mean, all of these events you go into with this incredible amount of hype, and the thing about Apple is your imagination runs wild, because every so often they'll pull something out and it's just like, whoa, did not see this coming, did not know this was going to happen. That has been increasingly not the case over the last few years.
People just pray for the one more thing.
I mean, I think we are remembering the Apple of 2006 and 2007 and but even post iPhone, we knew the iPad was coming. But I remember going on these hunts. We'd get sent images of some weird blurry image. The leaks were not as specific and not as obvious as they are now. You couldn't just get the backing from the new iPad shipped to you from China. We used to get these blurry photos, and we'd be trying to decipher, running filters on them, trying to figure out, is it real, is it fake, like where is this from, what's the EXIF data, like doing all of this investigation about the leaks and the stuff that we were seeing. We had the whole thing with Gizmodo and the iPhone 4 and the pictures that we'd gotten and all this stuff where we didn't know if it was real, we didn't know if it was fake. There was a huge amount of excitement and hype around it, but that is fewer and further between now.
And there are two things to say, because to that one, history is always going to be more interesting because we miss the times in between.
Right.
iPad was 2010. iPhone was 2007. Things weren't always interesting in every event in between, but we can go look back and say they did 5 great things in 5 years.
Right.
Sometimes we won't get as big. Some
when
years
they
will be off
launch
years.
something.
Even with Steve Jobs, there were off years.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, ever since they said we're doubling down on secrecy, they've done everything but.
I mean, I would say, it is incredible that the type of leak we're seeing now is as close to, you can put most of the thing together before Apple announces it.
Except for the name.
I mean, people had, you don't have the name, but people had the casing, they had the housing for the screen, they had all sorts of bits of this thing basically put together. So one thing I want to talk about, and I think somebody just tweeted at me about it, no Touch ID on the iPads. Obviously, they're manufacturing these sensors, these fingerprint sensors.
Right.
They're putting them in iPhone 5Ss. Is this just a thing where they said, is this kind of like Siri, where they said it's only going to be for our phone, for the flagship phone, and we're not going to bring it to our other devices? Why not bring Touch ID? If you're going to buy the $500, $600, $700 iPad with all of your work information on it, all of your sensitive information, all of your email,
the highest tech stuff.
yeah, why not? Why is the security less stringent for such a high-end device? Do you have any answer for that?
That's a good question.
I mean, seriously,
Not
I think it's worth asking, because Apple made a big deal about it. They said, we've got this new innovation. You talk about the innovative Apple. Here's Apple saying, we've got this innovation. It's a better sensor. It's faster. It's more secure. We're doing all of this stuff where we save that data in a special place. You don't let anybody have access to it. Yeah, the enclave, the walled community.
And no doubt they could fit it in the big iPad at least.
I think there's room for the enclave in the big. Even in the Retina, there's room for the enclave. No enclave, no fingerprint sensor. Why is that?
With Siri, they could blame it on the processor, ostensibly.
Yeah.
But with this,
there's no blaming it because it's the same system.
Yeah.
I mean, these are essentially the Retina. Is the M7, by the way? I haven't looked at the spec sheet yet. Is the M7 in the Retina Mini as well?
Look that up.
Yeah, can you check on it?
Yeah.
But so okay.
I don't think
Basically,
it's in either.
No, it's in the big one.
Yeah.
It's in the Air. You know, I just think the question is, you put everything else in there. Why leave the fingerprint sensor off? You know, don't you want me to be secure? Don't you care about my privacy?
All my pages.
Your wireframe.
My
airplane?
pages, yeah. I'm working on a new airplane for Boeing. I was wireframing. I was showing. I just got a secret. You know, I don't want people to know where the fuselage is. Next thing you know, I lost my iPad. No fingerprint sensor. Doxed. Everybody has my Boeing plans.
You do have Find My iPad, which is something Google Android only recently got.
Yeah.
At least in a first party capacity.
Yeah. No, that's true. But
here's one idea. One idea is if you look at iPads, a lot of people use them with their entire families. And I know you can do maximum of 10 fingers on Touch ID. Some people have hacked a way to do 50, believe it or not.
Yeah.
With Touch ID.
All
but
right.
maybe the actual
Touch ID seems like great for a family, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, what they should do. I mean, Apple doesn't want to do this because they want everybody.
I'm just talking about making sure it just works.
Right.
With one person, they could be a lot more confident.
But how many families actually share an iPad? That's insane.
I bet a lot of them.
That's psychotic. I wouldn't let anybody touch my iPad. I won't even let Laura touch it.
You can't share like App Store like logins.
Right. You have to.
iCloud,
You just basically have to say like, okay, here's the App Store login. Do whatever you want. I mean, you can put parental controls on it, but then like as the parent, you have to go in and. I mean, it just doesn't really.
So the iPad Mini does have the M7 coprocessor, the motion processor. So we're like they all.
Wait, did Apple quote Gizmodo?
Yes, they did.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Somebody just tweeted at me about it, and I missed that completely.
Wow.
That's a huge deal.
Yeah.
Is Gizmodo going to get out of the timeout or whatever Apple?
Some of the backstory to this. I don't know if everyone knows.
Okay, yeah. So let's catch everybody up. So you know, years ago, when the iPhone 4, before the iPhone 4 was released, there was this phone floating around. We published some pictures when we were at Engadget. We published some photos of it. The next day, Gizmodo had gotten the device. I can't believe I'm telling this story, but it's interesting because they showed a quote from them. And they ran a huge story, a huge feature on this thing, and it turned out that this phone had been lost in a bar. I can't believe I'm telling this story. The phone had been lost. If you don't know, why are you watching this?
Story.
The phone had been lost in a bar in California. Somebody found it, and then they sold it to Gizmodo, and then you know, Apple freaked out. They're like, "This is our device." Though they didn't say it publicly. They contacted Gizmodo.
Right.
Here's the post actually.
Oh, wow.
And they said, "Will you send this back to us?" And I think what happened, I don't remember all of the details, but I think like basically they were like, "We'll send it back." Giz was like, "We'll send it back to you if you send us something saying this is the next iPhone."
You want confirmation from Steve Jobs, I think.
Yeah. So they didn't like that.
Nope.
The next thing that happened is that basically Apple had police. It is insane now that I think of it. Apple had police kick in the door of Jason Chen, who was the editor of Gizmodo at the time.
He was out. He wasn't there at the time.
He was out. They like kicked in his door and took his computers and stuff.
Right.
And arrested him at some point or something. I don't remember if he was arrested or not.
I know
then I think there was a lawsuit with Gawker. It was an insane situation. But the long and short of it was it ended up Gizmodo was like banned. And Steve Jobs actually talked about it. He was at an All Things D. They do their D events. And he talked about it on stage with Walt and Kara and was like very clear that he kind of hated those guys and was really personally upset about it and wanted to blacklist them for as long. There's Jason Chen showing off the phone. And this, by the way, when we saw this was nobody knew for sure. We assumed that it was real, but you had no way of knowing.
It was a radical design change.
It was a crazy story. I mean, it's probably one of the biggest, maybe the biggest thing that Giz has ever done. I mean, until that hashtag video, which got crazy. It was crazy.
Oh, the Timberlake Fallon.
Yeah, the Timberlake Fallon thing. But anyhow, it's really interesting and notable that they quoted them today. That's a big deal. That's a big deal for Apple. I mean, they're a company that holds grudges.
And also that was back at a time like we didn't know what the iPhone 4 looked like. At this point, everything leaks so early. They can't blacklist everybody.
Yeah, right, exactly. Very interesting. Very shocking. What was the quote? Does anybody know what the quote was? I must have missed it while we were broadcasting.
Like something hyperbolic, like mind blown, or the best laptop ever. I think it was the best laptop ever.
Oh, the MacBook Air?
Yeah.
Well, that's cool. Maybe we'll start to see Giz guys at these events again. It's about time. I mean, it's been how long?
I mean,
Since
iPhone 4, 08, 07?
Yeah, it's too long. It's
Yeah, it's a long
ridiculous.
time.
It's ridiculous.
What about
Holding grudges.
2009?
I find holding grudges is unhealthy. To harbor all that, you know, you gotta let the shit go.
You're an easygoing man.
I'm an easygoing guy. I'm not a grudge holder. Only very specific instances do I hold grudges. You gotta really screw me over.
Let me ask you, so we're talking about MacBook
Yeah.
Air. Did you expect any updates to that other than like the few things he talked about with it being an awesome laptop?
No, I'm not. They just introduced new MacBook Airs.
They did.
I don't think Apple's in the habit of saying, "Hey, just 3 months ago we introduced the MacBook Air, and now here's a new MacBook Air."
Right.
And when did they introduce them? At WWDC?
Yeah, very recent. I think it was that.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's not even 6 months ago.
Right.
So I think that nothing was surprising. The MacBook Pro updates, not surprising.
We're now down, I don't know if this was the case beforehand, but definitely as of today, we're now down to only one non-Retina laptop. It's just the 13-inch MacBook Pro.
Well, the 11-inch. The 11-inch. What do you mean non-Retina laptop? The
Non-Retina
Airs?
Pros.
Oh, the Pros.
The Pros.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're down to just one 13-inch.
That's like the iPad 2 of their laptop
It is.
selection.
Like, they have the iPod Classic, the 13-inch MacBook Pro.
But what is this? It's a $100 price difference. Who would buy this
that's a
old
good
13-inch Core i5? Like
The same people who are saying, I'm not going to spend 100 more on my phone, even though I use it all day for 2 years.
And I really need a disk drive just for a few more years.
Right. I mean, it seems crazy to me that they would even continue selling that thing for a $100 price difference.
Yeah.
You know, why not just say we're getting rid of the old one? I guess they want to sell out of their old stock.
Yeah.
Basically.
So what about the iPad 2?
Yeah, the iPad 2, I don't understand. Can we talk about that for a second?
Please.
So iPad 2, did they change the connector on it?
No.
Is this the same 30-pin? Can we just? I just want to be doubly sure.
I will doubly check right
I just
now,
want to be
but
sure.
I'm
So it's 2 years old.
Mm-hmm.
It's the second iPad. Okay, we're on now the fifth iPad.
Yeah.
It's probably magnitude slower and
Oh, yeah.
heavier.
Non-Retina.
And
Non-Retina. Where is it? Can I see the tech specs?
Yeah.
Where are the tech specs?
Where are the tech specs?
Tech specs.
Yeah.
Tech specs.
9.7-inch A5 chip.
A5 chip, so 2 chips behind.
Mm-hmm. 475,000 apps, of course they do.
No, we know that. Did they not say the connector? Wait, scroll up. Scroll up. Scroll down.
Overview.
Scroll down.
Okay. What's in the box?
Dock connector to USB cable. So it's the old 30-pin connector.
Mm-hmm.
How much is it? $400?
It's $400. Same price
I mean,
as
I
the
feel like
iPad
it's
Mini
almost.
with Retina
I'm
display.
going to say it's almost offensive that Apple is still selling this. It is. I guarantee you, performance is awful with iOS 7.
Mm-hmm.
People I know who have older devices who've updated to iOS 7. My mother emailed me. She has an iPhone 4S, and was like so pissed about iOS 7, its performance on her phone. She's had crashes and it's been slow. People on iPhone 4s, people on iPad 2s. I mean, the performance is not good for iOS 7. So I feel like it's almost insulting to people to say, spend $400 on this heavily under-spec'd, old-ass device that isn't even compatible with new accessories and new cables. It just seems crazy. Why even sell it? Do they just need to get rid of them?
There's a trio.
Those should be discounted to like $200. That's what they should have done.
Yeah.
They just said, we're going to sell these for $200.
Just get rid of them.
I mean, whatever.
We get even more people buying apps on the platform. Now they're stuck and they're going to get next year's iPad.
No one's going to spend $400 on an iPad this year and then buy another one next year.
If they made it cheaper.
If they made it cheap, yeah.
But I mean, like, they still have the iPod Classic. This is the device that will never die.
No, but the iPad 2 doesn't make any sense. Like, if you look at the lineage of these things, why not just say we're getting rid of the iPad 2? Our new low end is the iPad. It's the iPad Mini.
Yeah.
You know, or take the iPad 4 and price it down. The problem is there's not enough differentiation between the iPad 4 and the iPad Air. The truth is, like, the screen resolution is the same. Yeah. The processor is faster in the new one, but probably not, noticeably faster between those two devices. Mm-hmm. The body type is different. People don't really care about that. Right. It has Lightning connector. So I feel like what's going to actually happen is they needed to draw a big line somewhere.
Just at a value perspective, $499 for the Air versus $399 for the 2, which is years old, is just really bizarre.
No, it's insane.
It's so disproportional.
It's insane. And I think that it's confusing to me, but I don't know, maybe Apple has a reason. somebody suggested on Twitter that this is an government education pricing, but I don't see why you couldn't do the same thing. I mean, hell, you could take the iPad 3 design and do the same thing.
Right.
And it'd be more compatible and faster. I mean, or the iPad 4. I mean, there's no way.
Update the cable.
I mean, they were selling the iPad 4 for a base price of $499 up until today, right?
Right.
Now the Air replaces it. So presumably they've been making that design and have a bunch of them sitting in a warehouse somewhere, or had a bunch sitting in a warehouse somewhere.
I mean, have they still been selling the iPad 2, or they just have so much supply?
No, I think they're still making them. It does kind of create some pricing pressure, though.
Yeah.
Yeah, what happened to all the iPad 3s?
Yeah, where are all the iPad 3s? The iPad 3 is like the lost.
Catch it on Gizmodo.
Well, they updated the iPad 3 early, right? It didn't take a year.
It was what, 6 months to 3
Something
to 4?
like that. Yeah.
So they want to make
Gave
it.
an
You're the
X.
worst sucker ever if you bought the 3.
And then they gave it an X, and then they gave it the Lightning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like a few months
It
later.
was not even a year. It was
Yeah.
not even a year.
And it was unfortunate because the iPad 2 to iPad 3rd gen was a big leap. It was the Retina display.
It was a cold.
And then they just changed the little dock connector.
Yeah, it was a cold.
And no cover. I wanted the cover. I wanted something.
Yeah. So now we have hands-on of these devices. I just want to talk about what's going on. If you're not looking at the site, Verge.com, which you should be, don't be insane. We have hands-on posts with the iPad Mini with Retina display, the new iPad Air, and have we done the laptops yet?
Does not seem we've done the laptops yet.
No. Though the laptops are not going to be, they're laptops running Mavericks.
This is interesting though. T-Mobile is offering new iPad users 200 megabytes of free monthly data. And T-Mobile is doing anything it can to get people onto its network. It's been a lot of big plays. This is an interesting incentive for people.
Right. Well, T-Mobile is looking to incentivize people. I guess there is a market. Somebody just mentioned on Twitter there's a big market for 30-pin accessories. Maybe that explains some of the iPad 2 longevity.
Someone else mentioned education market. Still buying a lot of bulk orders of iPad 2s.
Yeah.
$379 if you bulk K through 12.
Yeah, which I still, it doesn't seem that compelling to me. Let's talk about the Mac Pro a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that.
So I thought there would be I really thought there was going to be a Final Cut update. I've been hearing rumors that they need to roll back some of that stuff for
They
pros.
showed filmmakers and everything. It
Yeah,
was almost
right.
like maybe they just couldn't get it done.
I
in
feel
time.
like it just didn't happen
Couldn't
for some
pull
reason.
it
They
together.
definitely were leaning into that. But Mac Pro, what's your take on it?
I'm honestly, it's almost peripheral to that. I think it's a great piece of hardware. I'm kind of surprised they're not giving it a great display to go with it.
Yeah, it is surprising, like a really cool black display,
Yeah.
right? Like, where's the awesome, they made a crazy, same design kind of display, like a little bit more rounded or something, that is, crazy high resolution. I mean, what is the resolution of the current 21 or 27-inch iMac?
I think it's just above 1080p. Let's see.
No, it's really high.
Is it?
It's something stupid.
I'll take we'll look
Stupid
for it.
good, I mean.
But I mean, like, if they're boasting that you
How do
can
we not know
run
this off the top of
3
our heads?
4K displays, but the thing is,
Which is
who's
insane.
going to make them? Samsung's going to make them.
Right.
And they're each going to cost you another few $1,000s.
Well, Apple obviously doesn't make a 4K display, as Neeli will learn.
And they
has
also
learned.
got rid of the hard drives.
was
No
so
more,
hoping
no
for
more
that.
Fusion drives or what have you.
Oh,
It's all
really?
flash
Yeah, right,
now.
they-
It's all
they-
flash.
Oh, so they got the Fusion drives are out.
Wow.
I
Is
think
that,
so.
is that sure? Is that true? Are you sure about that?
Was Fusion just a stopgap till they could get cheaper flash memory?
It kind of seems like it. They made it out to be like a breakthrough between
Yeah, well.
Flash and you can do the stuff that you need right now
Right.
on Flash and the rest.
And there's also a new version of iOS 7 out today.
Yeah, the new
apparently.
Mac
7.0.3.
Pros, 256 flash-based storage.
Yeah. Well, they wanted people to go to external storage. Their whole deal is external storage.
I'm looking for
Right. You got Thunderbolt 2, which you can expand it with.
Yeah, I mean,
So that's the idea.
look, it's hard for me to get excited about the Mac Pro. I know that people who use Mac Pros have been clamoring for a new version.
Right.
I just wonder if this one is really serving their purposes, if they really feel like
I don't know.
this is what they've been waiting for. So the display is 2560 by 1440 on
Right.
the 27-inch.
And that's also for the cinema display that came out September 2010, which seems to be the last.
So that's
to get.
obviously extremely high res, but also big. 27-inch monitor is very
It's just
large.
above it, 1080p.
Yeah, but it's noticeably above it.
It's noticeably above it, but like you still.
I feel like going really high. I mean, I think doing a 4K display is clearly within their reach. They just didn't want to do it for some reason. So we are at some point going to speak to David Pierce.
David Pierce, he's
I
wrapping up
believe.
some of the hands-on.
He's doing some hands-on work right now. We're going to talk to him. I gotta say, I'm kind of stunned not stunned, but I guess a little disappointed that there wasn't there's nothing meatier to really discuss here. It's there was obviously the software was the focus to me. Right. It really wasn't hardware. Mavericks.
I was surprised
which we'd
how
already
much.
heard everything about.
Yeah, but they still focused a lot on it. I was very surprised how much.
They did a Mavericks demo. They always do this, but the price point is really notable. Free.
And it was $29, I think, last year?
It was $29 to update the last version.
Right.
Now it's free. I mean, again, this is Apple's game, right?
Right.
They want people to use the software. They don't really make money off of updating their OS. That's not where the cash is coming from. You remember
when iOS cost money to update on your iPod Touch or what have you?
Oh my God,
remember
that's
that?
right.
Oh, they had the thing where it was like $10.
Yeah.
When it was iPhone
It's like,
OS.
why? You want my $10?
I never really.
Well, that was also that was before the App Store really kind of hit it off. Like, they get so much money in rev share for that. Like, to get people in the latest version of iOS, they can now get the 70-30 split from app developers. I feel like the same thing for like the Mac App Store now. Like, that's a huge thing. When was the last time you bought an app outside the App Store? For OS 10.
I'm the app guy.
You're the app guy, so I'm asking you.
Week.
You're a French guy.
I actually do it pretty often because there are a lot of limitations to App Store apps. And that's all there is to it. So we actually have David Pierce live and direct from San Francisco. David, are you with us? David Pierce. I hear. No, oh, there he is. Look at him. Very sporty Pierce.
Looking comfy.
David, wow, that is shocking.
He's holding on.
David, you've handled product today. Tell us your experience. Tell us how you feel about the new stuff.
I mean, I think the iPad Air is pretty remarkable. I mean, it's exactly what we thought it was going to be, but it's so much smaller. It's so much lighter. It's big. I mean, it's hilarious how much it's just a slightly bigger iPad Mini. And like, that's a good thing. It's really light and really nice and just feels really good in a way that the old iPads didn't feel quite as well put together as the iPad Mini, and now it does. But again, it's I've been hearing some of your conversation. It's exactly what we thought it would be. It's really obvious. It's sort of a normal move. A lot of the pricing things they did here make absolutely no sense to me.
Yeah.
The screen on the iPad Mini looks amazing. And I think in a lot of ways what's really sort of weird about today is that the iPad Mini is in almost every way a more compelling device now than the iPad Air.
Is it?
And
why?
I'm sort of confused by everything I saw today. But both of the iPads feel really nice. I can say at least that much.
Yeah, I mean, look, there's no question that Apple has with each iteration made a more beautiful device. Battery life is it the same on the Air? What is their number now for the Air compared to the iPad 4? Do you know?
Yeah, it's 10 hours in both cases. It was funny, they showed the exact same slide, the exact same, he's described it the exact same way. They're the same as each other, and they're the same as they've always been. It's just kind of the same.
Did you have a chance, while you've been there, to play around with any of the iWork updates or any of the collaboration? Have you had a chance to look at that more in depth?
Yeah, I have only briefly, but which is just a wonderful thing about iOS 7 is the icons are mostly just really ugly. But the apps themselves are wonderful. The iMovie app is super simple and really well put together. I even was using it on the Mini, which before has been kind of slow and not quite there, but it's really visual. It's really pretty now. And there's this great, they were just flipping around with picture in picture, and she was adding a bunch of different timelines all to the same video, and it's really simple and works really, really well. I was actually really impressed. And Keynote, Keynote is Keynote. There's new animations and stuff, but it's still sort of the same presentation tool as always. All the apps are really nice and well put together, but they were so much the focus of this event that it was really surprising that they spent longer demoing GarageBand than they did doing any kind of meaningful demos with any of the new hardware. And it was clearly a recap of a lot of things they talked about before. A lot of things they're really nice, like Mavericks adding an extra hour of battery life to your existing PC is a great thing. Good job, Apple. That's a smart way to do it. But to spend all this time on software and then kind of get to the iPad, call it something new, I was sure they were building towards something called the iPad Pro that was going to be meaningfully different and better and more expensive in some way, and then it just kind of ended.
But haven't they opened the window for on iPad Pro here, haven't they set a kind of precedent with the naming convention? Do you think that this is in the cards now? Does it feel like an iPad Pro makes sense? Or, I mean, how much more Pro can an iPad get after the Air? I mean, it's really a question of screen size, right? Because, I mean, until they have a new processor, unless I'm missing something.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question. I mean, we were talking to some of the Apple people as we were waiting in line to get in this morning, and we were talking about, the rumors and stuff, and we were like, oh, so the big iPad's coming, and one of them leaned in, they were like, listen, the big iPad, we already have that, it's called the MacBook Air. And so, like, this is not a thing that they're either doing the classic misdirection thing, which is possible, and given the fact that they changed the name, like, why would you change the name from iPad to iPad Air if you're not going to add something else to this lineup? It just doesn't make any sense. But they spent a lot of time, like, with the sly Surface burns, talking about how bad Microsoft is, and they had that hilarious graphic where there's all the lines intertwined where they were like, nobody else knows what they're doing, and we're really terrific. So I don't know. It's this weird, they're saying everybody else is doing it wrong, but then there's this big sort of obvious gaping hole now where that kind of product would live. So I don't know. It's going to be interesting.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I know that you have to get back to work. I think that you've got several thousand more hands-on videos that you're going to participate in before the day is out. David, thank you for taking the time. I'm sure you're very tired. You guys got up at like 5 in the morning or something. I'm sure you're very tired. Thanks for taking the time, and we'll see you back in New York very soon.
Another interesting point is that the iPad Mini and the iPad Air, so the two iPads, are now on parity in terms of what's inside. Finally,
it's specs and design too, because we have this there's this convergence. I feel, and that's like the big theme here.
It's clear that they see and I'm sure that they have data that it makes sense that this is how it needs to be. But they see the Mini and the Air now, the iPads, as separate. They're separate use cases, separate users there, right?
Well,
which seems weird to me,
but they don't, because like they actually showed, and they made a big point. We saw it a second ago in the B-roll that there's a guy holding the iPad Air with one hand, which is something they never showed with the old iPad.
Right,
they couldn't do it.
That was part of the message. Is that here's your one hand, here's your pointing to a friend, showing them your work that you're doing.
The difference at this point is just size.
No, but that's what I'm saying. But it's size. But it also seems like they're saying, like, look, we have strata here. We've got iPad Mini cheap, iPad Mini expensive, iPad Air. Well, they don't have a cheap iPad Air. Then we've got iPad Air. Is it just? I mean, the Mini Retina and the Air are at parity in terms of specs. Yeah. So you don't think those are seen as separate tracks? Like, hey, there's people who want the small screen, people who want the large screen. We're making a set of products for each.
I think it's way more confusing now for people. I think it's part of Apple saying they're converging.
Especially since they downsize the body of the 9.7 and 7.9. They're not wildly off in terms of size. So
and they look as similar as they've ever looked now that the bezel has been trimmed on the sides, which means they're saying, okay, we like this in portrait mode. You can hold it horizontally with those, bars on the side. Right. But I think the way I've been thinking about it is that it's like having a legal pad and like having a moleskin. Different people like different things. Different people like to read different ways. Different people like to take notes different ways. So I think they're just trying to fill both of those needs, at least for now, while people are still buying both of them.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we're about ready to wrap here. Is there anything that we have not thoroughly dissected?
No, I mean
the shirts, the untucked shirts. We haven't talked about that.
We talked about it a lot during.
We did talk a lot about it during the live.
T-shirts
event.
are a big deal for us.
I don't get it.
Maybe I'm just nitpicking, but I really pay close attention to these presentations, and I heard more stutters and little word miscues today than I've ever heard.
It really did.
Did you hear that?
They had a lot of, and this is talking someone who's stuttering right now.
Yeah.
They had a lot of like pre-recorded footage, more than I've seen them have before.
They had a lot of pre-recorded footage, and frankly, like, this was not an energetic event.
No.
It was very mellow. I mean, all of their events lately are very mellow. There is the showmanship of Steve Jobs. We got hooked on it. We're used to it. We still, even though we know it's not going to be there, we kind of expect it from an Apple event when the spectacle starts ratcheting up. These guys are all fine on stage. They're all good at their jobs. They're all capable. They're smart dudes.
And they're still a tier above any other company.
Oh my God! Actually, people have gotten better. They've learned. Samsung still hasn't learned, but most companies have taken cues, and they don't put they don't put the really embarrassing guys out on stage.
They didn't put teens on stage, which was good.
They didn't. Yeah,
Always a
there
good
are no
choice.
teens. But it's still, you kind of ratchet up for that excitement, and then it's just not there. This is a very low key, very mellow event.
Yeah.
These are incremental product updates, and it just seems like until they enter that new product category, they're going to feel like this, and that may be early next year. That may happen very soon.
It could be some weird invitation pun like "Watch what happens" or something like that. And
Yeah.
I think when we go back to the title for a second, I think that's what upsets me the most. We kept getting super excited by the whatever pun could be. Still a lot to cover. And in fact, there was no pun. It was just a lot to talk about. It was a very boring non-pun announcement.
Yeah, we've got a lot to cover. Anyhow,
we had a post about all the puns in their meetings.
We were hoping it was
we
something
did.
else.
Well, I mean,
And-
they've been teasing stuff for 10 years in these invitations. They've got some of them
Right.
have been really cryptic, and
They
some of
know
them
we're
have just been
looking.
just whatever. Okay, so I think we need to wrap up. That is The Verge Live at Apple.
It is.
For another October event. A great birthday gift to me, I feel.
Happy belated
Which
birthday.
I just had. I had my
Yes.
birthday on Saturday. Thank you for all the warm wishes. 25 years young. Anyhow, but I would like to thank, obviously, Ross and Ellis, the Vox Studios team, everybody who worked on this broadcast. What are you pointing to? You're pointing
You're
over
good.
to the.
Thank you,
You're
Dylan.
pointing
Thank
to the
you, sir.
control room,
Yes,
which nobody
but
can see.
You're breaking
Thank you.
If you could
wall
see
right
them,
now.
these people, though, they're so beautiful, and also in the nude, which is how we do it. And thanks to you guys for watching. I mean, you've been listening. If you've been listening to this whole thing from like the start of the broadcast to this,
Then I'm sorry.
You're sick. You're a very sick person, and we appreciate it. We'll be back with the Vergecast on Thursday, and obviously we have great right now on the site. If you haven't checked it out, we have great video, hands-on videos of the minis, the iPad Air, I believe the new MacBooks. Now we have some video of them. At the very least, we have hands-on stories, posts about them. With in-depth coverage and just tons of news from today. Everything that they mentioned that was newsworthy, we have a story on. So if you want more information, continue to look at TheVerge.com. And if you don't want information, that's fine. Don't read The Verge. I get it. You like to be ignorant.
Go take a nap.
It's cool. Yeah, go take a nap. Anyhow, thanks so much. We'll be back very soon.